Hey, Regal here, and welcome back to the SCP Foundation. I don't really have a big opening thing to this one because it's not been long since the last video. Let's get into it. Okay, today we're covering SCP-682, or the Hard-to-Destroy Reptile. So today, I want to give you this idea. So today my concept for what I want you to think about is what makes a good villain. Some people think relatability, so you can understand why they're doing what they're doing. Others say that intelligence and cunning crafts the mightiest of antagonists. But I am a pretty big fan of the slasher-esque villains. You know, villains who always come back. Anyway, today's Skip is an example of such. A reptile who you just can't keep down. A reptile who also just happens to hate all life in existence and intends to wipe out all of it before its own long life ends. Yeah, this will be a fun one. Let's get started. Item number: SCP-682. Object class: Keter. Special containment procedures: SCP-682 must be destroyed as soon as possible. At this time, no means available to SCP teams are capable of destroying SCP-682. Only able to cause massive physical damage. SCP-682 should be contained within a 5 meter by 5 meter by 5 meter chamber with 25 centimeters reinforced acid-resistant steel-lined plating along all surfaces. The containment chamber should be filled with hydrochloric acid until SCP-682 is submerged and incapacitated. Any attempts of SCP-682 to move, speak, or breach containment should be reacted to quickly and with full force as called for by these circumstances. Personnel are forbidden to speak with SCP-682 for fear of provoking a rage state. All unauthorized personnel attempting to communicate with SCP-682 will be restrained and removed by force. Due to its frequent attempts at a containment breach, difficulty of containment and incapacitation, and high threat of Foundation exposure, SCP-682 is to be contained in sight. The Foundation will use the best of its resources to maintain all land within 50 kilometers clear of human development. Description: SCP-682 is a large, vaguely reptilian-like creature of unknown origin. It appears to be extremely intelligent and was observed to engage in complex communication with SCP-079 during their limited time of exposure. SCP-682 appears to have a hatred of all life, which has been expressed in several interviews during containment. See Addendum 682-B. SCP-682 has always been observed to have extremely high strength, speed, and reflexes, though exact levels vary with its form. SCP-682's physical body grows and changes very quickly, growing or decreasing in size as it consumes or sheds material. SCP-682 gains energy from anything it ingests, organic or inorganic. Digestion seems to be aided by a set of filtering gills inside of SCP-682's nostrils, which are able to remove any usable matter from any liquid solution, enabling it to constantly regenerate from the acid it has been contained in. SCP-682's regenerative capabilities and resilience are staggering. SCP-682 has been seen moving and speaking with 87% of its body destroyed or rotted. In case of a containment breach, SCP-682 is to be tracked and recaptured by all available mobile task forces, and no teams with fewer than 7 members are cleared to engage it. To date, attempted breaches have numbered at 17, while successful breachers have numbered at 6. See Addendum 682-D. Addendum 682-B. Portion of recorded transcript of Begin log. Skip to 0 hours, 21 minutes, and 52 seconds.
Now, why did you kill those farmers?
SCP-682 shows no verbal communication.
If you don't talk now, we'll remove you from this attempt and place you back into.
Kill them.
Pardon?
Kill them all.
Speak up. Move the mic closer.
They were...
The microphone only has so much gain. Move it closer.
His throat's messed up, man. Look at it. He ate. They were Disgusting. The doctor retreats from the room. End log. Addendum SCP-682-D. Breaches with SCP-682. Clearance denied. Addendum 682-E. Termination options. Log of event 682-E18. Doctor attempts to use SCP-409 on SCP-682. 0400 hours. Exposure. SCP-682 began to tear at the point of contact, causing massive trauma to the area. SCP-682 requests several times to know what it has been exposed to. 0800 hours. Crystallization begins, spreading much slower than normal. 1200 hours. SCP-682 shows signs of extreme pain and begins having seizures. 1300 hours. Crystallization stops at 62% conversion. Crystallized area explodes, causing massive physical trauma to SCP-682. 1400 hours. SCP-682 recovers from exposure despite the loss of limbs and organs. SCP-682 begins regeneration, stating that it will attempt to kill and consume all staff involved in SCP-682-E-18. SCP-682 appears to now be immune to SCP-409. Use of other SCP items to terminate SCP-682 must now be first tested on samples 6 of 682 before full-scale testing. In accordance to the doctor's recommendations, see document 27B-6, Dr. Redacted have requested permission to attempt the termination of SCP-682 using SCP-689. The request is currently pending approval from the... It has also been suggested by Dr. Gears to use SCP-182 in an attempt to communicate with SCP-682. SCP-182 has expressed reluctance and refuses to enter the containment of 682 if at all possible. Ooh, spooky stuff, right? To me, this is one of the most unnerving SCPs. Maybe not one of the scariest, but one that's definitely the most conceptually frightening. The idea that somewhere hopefully very far away, is this massive reptile with the ability to perfectly adapt to any response and stimulus with an utter hatred for all life around and only kept in check by the mild inconvenience that the containment is. Anyway, there's a lot of SCP-682 out there, but there's not much that pertains to, the jumping in point that this series is. Like, there's a lot of stories involving 682, but there aren't as much that'll, really stick in line with what I've given you with this series so far. No World War I or Crunch story shenanigans this time. So instead, we're going to be investigating the core tenets of the SCP's anomalous nature, i.e. that whole bit about it being really hard to get rid of. That's right, it's time for termination tests, which if you don't remember my video from, I believe it was 096, I explained to you the concept of a termination test is basically a big old boxing match where we place one SCP in one corner and another one in the other and make them fight until one of them dies, hopefully. Now, bear in mind, basically the order of the Foundation is as soon as there's a new one discovered, we put it in the ring with 682, so there are a lot. I'm going to be cherry-picking a little bit. Anyway, enjoy. Termination Test Item. Dr. Clef. Tissue Test Record. Not applicable. Termination Test Record. SCP-682 introduced into testing area. Dr. Clef introduced into testing area. Dr. Clef and SCP-682 stare at each other for approximately 3 minutes. Dr. Clef slowly backs out of testing area as SCP-682 continues to stare. Dr. Clef attempts to open door of testing area. Door of testing area determined to be locked. Dr. Clef reportedly uses several loud expletives, then attaches an unknown device to the door, keeping his eyes on SCP-682 the whole time. SCP-682 continues to stare. Dr. Clef detonates a small plastic explosive charge on the door, causing a containment breach. SCP-682 continues to stare. Dr. Clef engages emergency secondary lockdown doors and declares a partial containment situation. SCP-682 does not react. Dr. Clef proceeds to Experiment Observation Center. Termination Test Item. 1 Ordinary Human Child. Tissue Test Record. Not applicable. Termination Test Record. Child began to scream and cry when SCP-682 was introduced into the cell. Subject was immediately and messily devoured by SCP-682.
Okay, so that didn't work so well. Maybe the fact that the kid was crying made 682 perceive it as a hostile intent.
Guest researcher Dr. W. Termination Test Item. 1 ordinary human child. Drug to cancel extreme emotional reaction. Tissue test record. Non-applicable. Termination test record. Child stood and smiled, giggling at SCP-682 with no sign of fear. SCP-682 devoured the subject messily. Notes.
Maybe we could try that again. I'm sure somewhere out there's a kid who made friends with it like SCP-053 did.
Guest researcher W. Termination test item. Researcher Dr. W. Tissue test record. Non-applicable. Termination test record. Subject screamed in terror and pounded on the door to the test facility begging to be let out. SCP-682 devoured it messily 3 minutes after being introduced. Notes. Thing sadistic asshole. I've got no sympathy for that moron whatever. Introducing children to this thing monster? What the hell? Assistant Director Clef. Termination test item. SCP-173 with a photograph of SCP-096 attached to it. Tissue test record. Non-applicable. Termination test record. Denied by 05... Notes. No! Absolutely not! Setting aside the problem of SCP-682 and 173 that cannot be observed for fear of triggering a response from 096 is a self-perpetuating catastrophe that the Foundation does not, under any reasonable circumstances, have the slightest desire to unleash. Denied with vehemence. Termination test item. SCP-682 Killer, dispensed from SCP-294. Tissue test record. Upon contact with the liquid, sample began to crumble and decay, diminished to a fine powder within 3 minutes of application. Termination test record. Acid and containment chamber of SCP-682 was temporarily receded. Approximately 1 liter of the dispensed liquid was poured onto the head of SCP-682. Portion of 682's head began to crumble and decay. Upon submersion of the chamber containment, the affected areas immediately dissolved. Note. We may be onto something. If we can get our hands on a large enough sample of the fluid, that might do the trick. We're learning, I'm telling you. Doctor. Termination test item. SCP-055. Tissue test record. Data lost. Termination test record. Data lost. Note.
Given that SCP-682 is still alive, I believe we can safely assume that SCP-055 is not something which can kill it. That I haven't forgotten. This confirms this. I don't know whether to be relieved or horrified. Maybe both.
Dr. Margin. Do you believe me now when I say it's hard to destroy? No, I mean, I basically picked out the funny ones and the ones that have SCPs that are kind of remarkable, but there are a ton. And like I said in the earlier video, I'm probably going to have to come back. I mean, maybe that's a video idea in and of itself, is every single termination test, but that would be a Herculean effort. Anyways, guys, that's about it for 682. I might circle back, but I really don't know of a whole lot of interesting tales regarding 682. I could do the inevitable end of All But Me, but I kind of want to save that one for like a standalone video whenever I'm run short of ideas and don't want to just go into another SCP. You know, I do upload other things on this channel. But that's about it for today, guys. So thank you all so much for watching this video. I'm likely planning 049 next time, or maybe something else. I don't know. I've been thinking about the IKEA for a while. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed it, and as always, I will catch you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye!